Hey, it's Elizabeth D'Alto, and this is the Untame the Wild Soul podcast. From body image, sex, spirituality, money and relationships, to motherhood, creativity, business, communication, and desire, Untame the Wild Soul is the place to come for real stories and powerful advice to help you reclaim and redefine womanhood in the 21st century. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 199 of the Untame the Wild Soul podcast. Can you believe we have done 199 episodes? Maybe you can. It feels absolutely unbelievable to me. But anyway, I really enjoyed the conversation with today's guest, Laura Coe. Laura has her own podcast called The Art of Authenticity, hence the name of our interview today. And in this conversation, we talked about some really practical things and also laughed a lot at both ourselves as well as how humans behave in today's interesting world. Some of the things we explored here are how in every moment there's an infinite number of ways to interpret what happens. We talked about reclaiming the word authenticity, which is both overused and misused in our content-heavy society. And we dove into some bigger topics, things like existentialism, self-regulation, and how suffering happens when we try to hold on to pleasure and push pain away. It's a very illuminating discussion, and I can't wait to hear what you get out of it. The show notes will be over at untameyourself.com/episode-199. You can also find me on Facebook or Instagram. Both of them, my name is at Elizabeth D'Alto. And let me know what you thought. Share the episode if you know anyone who can connect or relate to this one. And before we dive into the show, we recently collected surveys, and I just want to take a moment to thank each of you who took the time to fill out the survey. It was super useful, super helpful. And one of the things that I noticed was that we actually have a lot of tools and a lot of things already in existence up on our website that many of you had answered in your survey that you wished I would create. So I just want to remind you guys that you can head over to wildsoulmovement.com/resources. On that page are some of our top downloaded podcast episodes ever on topics that I now know because you have filled out those surveys that you're super interested in, as well as 9 different downloadable resources ranging in topics from our 9-minute morning ritual to how to integrate masculine and feminine energy, how to trust yourself, how to become fluent in your body's embodied language, your body's unique language of the senses. So there's a lot of goodies over there on that page. It's all free, as well as for those of you who have not yet checked out the Wild Soul Toolkit. Many of you on your surveys wrote like you wished that I just had more practices and tools for you. And so the Wild Soul Toolkit has things like full and new moon rituals, meditation for divine protection, for connecting to your wild soul, rituals for starting a new endeavor and energizing your projects, rituals for bringing things to completion, all kinds of amazing stuff in that. And the toolkit can be found at wildsoulmovement.com/toolkit. And I'm just going to give you a little heads up. If you check out that toolkit and you're interested in it, don't buy it yet, wink, wink, because Sunday, when our Sunday sermon episode goes up and it's episode number 200, we're going to launch off a special week-long celebration, and I'm going to put that toolkit on sale. So hold out until Sunday if you want to get the sale price. And if not, go ahead and get it right now. So that is that for announcements. I'm super excited to get into today's episode. Let's go. All right, everyone. This is going to be a really fun conversation. Laura and I were chatting offline a little bit before I hit the record button. We've got some buzzwords. We've got some stuff that might trigger you, y'all. We'll see. We'll find out. So, Laura, you've already been introduced. They already have an idea of what the interview's about, what you're about. My first question for all of our women is, what do you love about being a woman?
Ooh. Wow, that's good. Nobody's asked me that one. That's so much fun. There's so many things. It's so hard to pick. But if I were to really try to narrow it down to one thing, I love trying to find the balance of bringing forward all the power of femininity into what is, mainly a masculine world when it comes to ambition. Like the definition of ambition is, really been organized around the male psyche and the male mind, and like crush it and bring it and do it and right, pound it out and, bigger, better, more. I love trying to figure out how to like bring the feminine into the world of ambition.
Oh, I love that. I like that frame on it too. So your work, as I understand, the evolution has been, you began around this topic of emotional obesity. And I'd love for you to describe that. And I know now that you're working more in the realm of authenticity, which we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about reclaiming that word. We're all about reclaiming things here on this show. And nice. That word has been really overused, but it doesn't mean it's not still a true, amazing word where there's a lot of value. So let's start. What do you mean when you say emotional obesity?
Yeah. So this all stemmed from my own personal journey in that, the simple answer is the thoughts in your heads, the way we perceive the world, the way we narrate, because each and every one of us goes out every day and we tell ourselves a story about what's happening. You go to the barista, you get a coffee, she looks a certain way, and we narrate. Some people would say, oh, I feel sad for her. She's having a hard day. Other people are like, man, she sucks. Like, what's wrong with her? She ruined my day, right? We're narrating all the time. And so the emotional obesity is that the thoughts in your head, the way that you tell the story of your life, where it comes from, can weigh you down. And so what are the ways in which you are weighed down? How are your thoughts, quote, junk food thoughts, right? Like, what is the GMOs and processed foods of your mind? And what are nutritional? When are you feeling compassionate, gratitude, all these high self-worth? When are you in states of judgment, criticism? So that's what emotional weight is. And I got to this place because I realized I was really struggling with it. I had built an entire life. I had built up a business, sold it to a Fortune 500. And I, for some odd reason, despite everything around me being ticked and tied and all the boxes checked, didn't feel the way I wanted to. Something was off. And that's when I realized, oh, it's the way that I'm thinking. It's the way that I'm perceiving my life. And I was really weighed down. I was having panic attacks. I was feeling completely anxious. And it's like at the pinnacle moment of my life with a business sold to a Fortune 500. I'm an executive. I have a young child. I'm in a relationship that's stable. What more could a person want, right? And how am I finding myself in that place? So that's where it came from, was this kind of like jab at myself of, oh my God, it's just like getting to the gym. I haven't worked out my personal stuff in a long time, and I'm not coming from a good place a lot of times. What does that all mean? So I dove back into the philosophy I love, and that's where the book really came from in the concept.
Cool. So say more about philosophy. I was actually really excited when I was cruising around on your website to see you use the word philosophy, because I feel like, I don't know, it's just not used that much, or at least I don't see it used that much.
Yeah. So I hated school. I was the worst student. I was the kid that you wanted to kind of keep your kids away from, if I'm being totally honest. I was like totally mixed up in all the wrong people, all the wrong things. I was bored all the time. I couldn't stand any classes. And for some reason, philosophy really hit me. It was like a soul moment where I was reading Plato at 16 in a class. And I, again, didn't read my books typically, but I had like goosebumps and I wasn't sure why. There was something about it that just deeply resonated. Like almost like I was like, in another life, I must have been in Greece or Athens or something. And so I went into college and I majored in it. And I went to graduate school. I thought I was going to be a professor in philosophy. And the reason I love it so much is that, there's, as soon as you say you're into philosophy, people say like, what's the point? What's the purpose? These guys were all writing, some women, but mainly men, were all writing about how we interpret the world, what it means to live in the world, how we experience the world. What more could matter than that? And all the self-help, all the stuff in psychology that we all get into, that all stemmed from philosophy. That was a branch off of it. So it was a passion of mine, and I love it because it helps me frame my life in ways that, even though it feels like, wow, that stuff is 2,000 years old, it still resonates today. It's still a value today. And it's still the same point, because our brains really haven't evolved in the last a few tens of thousands of years. So it's really not that much different. And so that's where that came from. And that's why I love it so much. It's just helped me organize myself around concepts that have been true, for thousands of years and I think remain true today.
What are some of those main concepts?
Ooh, it's like picking from babies for me, but
I know, just like
a couple of them.
Your faves.
Yeah, I mean, my real favorite is this idea of epistemology, which is the study of knowledge. Like, how do you know, as I was alluding to at the beginning, how do you know in any moment what's really happening? We have our perception, but our perception is so limited. You and I are having a conversation right now, and there are people listening, and everybody is perceiving this in a different way. And so if you really stop and think about that, that's crazy. That means that in every moment, there's sort of an infinite number of ways to interpret. Now, we all could say, like, look, 60% of us agreed that that was boring or that was fun, or, we go on Rotten Tomatoes and we can see a movie and, it got 100% people agree with that, or it got like 0 and we all said, yeah, that movie kind of sucked. It doesn't mean that we can't agree on perception in certain situations, but there's a lot of ways to perceive a given moment. And with that, that gives you the opportunity to choose how you view your life and have some control over situations that are unpleasant, right? Because that's kind of what we want. We want to be in difficult moments and feel better about them. We don't want to have them tank us and feel like, something around us happens and our life goes under. So that's my favorite topic because I think it gives me the biggest sense of control and options in my own personal life.
Yeah. And, and having a podcast, and I know you have one as well, nothing I've experienced, because it's like it's going out to the masses, thousands and thousands of people are listening. I don't know what your system is for like interacting with your guests, but I have a Facebook group and people leave comments on all my social media stuff all the time. And it's always so funny to me and interesting. It's not even funny. It's interesting to see how some people are like, oh my God, this is my favorite episode. I had all these openings, blah, blah, all this stuff. And some people could be like, this episode lacked blah, blah, blah. Like, I was wondering this, I wanted that. And it's like, what? Like we really are. We all have different experiences. We are super limited. And so I think one of the things I love about these conversations is dropping in and planting these seeds for people's perceptions to shift potentially.
Absolutely. And, right messenger, right time, and that's what's so cool is I think everybody's had this experience where they see something one way for a really long time. To your point, like they're on Facebook and they just really don't like a certain type of, interview or style, or that person's voice annoyed me. And then you can hear it from somebody else and it's the same exact message. And you're like, boom, like that was crazy. Oh my God, I got it. And I had a life-changing experience, right? And so, I had this yoga teacher once who said he purposefully goes and adjusts the people he's least attracted to. And so what I loved about that is he's like, I have the most to learn by what I want to avoid the most, right? Yeah. And so what is it within us that makes us say like, God, that just annoyed me so much. Why? Why did it annoy you? It didn't annoy the other 60 people. What is it that sparked within you? We always want to blame the situations around us or say, no, it's not me, it's that, right? Like, why doesn't everybody get it? But his comment about the yoga, it's like, oh, this is a really big opportunity to learn and grow if I pay attention to what I'm most repelled by, right? Like, because that tells me a lot about myself.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to ask you something. This is great because this has been a conversation I've been having a lot lately. I did a Facebook Live about it. I've been really observing in myself and people in my programs. What is the difference between resistance and dissonance? Because like you're saying, oh, I should lean into the thing that I most want to avoid, or I should really pay attention to the things that repel me. And I know a lot in like the self-help world, people are like, well, if it's resistance, you should lean into it. And I'm like, yeah, but sometimes it's dissonance. It's actually my body or my system being like, that's not for you. How do you navigate that?
I love that question. That's so dead on. I 100% agree with you, first of all. There's a huge difference. So our body came with the ability to tell us in every moment truly what we believe. It's the deeper compass within us, which is what I believe authenticity really is.
Yes.
But to get to it is complicated because of all these layers of thoughts and all these different things that go on within us that make it confusing. Like, well, what's the real me? Where's the real me? Where's my real voice? What is my truth? And if I tell my truth, also, people won't agree. I will feel, called out of the herd. And there's so much fear out of being truthful and telling the truth and living in your truth. And so this is how I think about it. If you are really uplifted and really motivated towards something, in your heart of hearts, that compass within you is saying go, but there's resistance because you're afraid of failure. You're afraid of approvals. You're afraid of judgments. That's a go. That's a green light. You get a coach, figure it out, go forward though. Don't give up there. If it's, I really feel I should do this because I have 7,000 reasons that it makes a ton of sense, which is how I lived my life for like a decade. I was like, pro con list. Yes, no, yep, makes sense. Okay, talk to 42 people, get a collective answer, and I'm moving forward on that, right? And I just cut out all of that internal wisdom. So if it's like, I have 700 reasons that I think I should do it, but I hear the word should a lot, and I feel so weighted down I could cry. Like, I don't want to. Mm-hmm. And so that kicking, screaming truth within you, you've got to let it out. You've got to let it be free. There could be 1,000 good reasons to do it. But if you're deeply like, that truth within you is saying no, that's the one you've got to listen to.
Yeah.
So
oh my God, this is so great. And it's because like the magnitude at which this shows up, it could be small things, even like this has nothing to do with you, by the way, not personal. Yeah. I really didn't want to do this interview today. I had literally like an hour before we were supposed to come on, I was working on slides for a PowerPoint thing and an outline of something. And I realized that I had messed up. I erased half of it. And I was like, damn, I got to do this right now. I'm like, I can't. We'd actually already had to reschedule this interview once. I'm like, I can't move this interview again. So I had enormous resistance to doing it because I wanted to finish the other thing. But I'm like, I knew that was a resistance. I was like, just do the effing interview, Elizabeth. That's how I talk to myself sometimes. And look at this great, like, I'm so glad we're here, And so it wasn't dissonance. It wasn't like, I'm not vibing with this person or anything like that. It was straight up just like, sometimes it just comes out of like inconvenience, or maybe right now didn't feel like the best time, but sometimes you just got to show up.
That's right. And that's the big difference is like, I love that example, right? Like, I sometimes get people who want to come on my show and I can just feel there's something off in the interview. It doesn't feel right to me. I'm not vibing with it. I'm not getting it. That's a no. And even if their credentials are amazing, it's a no. And when I say yes and I prostitute myself out and I'm like, no, but I should do it, I'm so unhappy. Like the whole thing, it never works out. But to your point, like the bigger...
I just like that you called it prostituting, because it is.
It is. I'm selling myself out. I'm just totally like, I might as well get money for it. And so, but if like, say, podcast, you're a podcaster, it's a big yes for me. I love my podcast, but I seriously hate every single step of the podcast. Like, I hate getting the intro done and put in this folder so that the people who can edit it can get to it. And then I hate uploading it to the software system. There's so many freaking steps in a podcast. It makes me want to cry, right? Like, I hate it, but I love my podcast. So it's a big yes for me. That's just stuff that it's inconvenient. It's annoying. I'm feeling resistance towards because it's tedious, right? But but I don't feel a no in me, right? So that's why it's so complicated, because you have to take the time to parse through all these little components and figure out, is this truly a no, or am I frustrated by details, in a bad mood, didn't get sleep, right? Like, and we just don't do that as adults. We just man up, push through, Yeah.
Or on the other side of the spectrum, I feel like there's a lot of messaging around, follow your desires, only do what feels good.
Yes.
If I only ever did what felt good, like, we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be living here. I would certainly not be able to afford my rent. Like,
100%, which is why I got into authenticity, because I'm so annoyed by how they're talking about it. It is not what the philosophy said. It's not where the origin of the idea came from. It is not what the idea came from. Existentialism. It is not what people are talking about on Instagram. And so, yeah, it is not about happiness. And so here's the thing that I realized: we have confused pleasure points, right? It is pleasurable to see a puppy. It is pleasurable to eat an ice cream cone. It is pleasurable to have a child laughing or something, buy some new blue jeans. Those are pleasure points. That is not authenticity. That is not going to get you contentment. So if I just did what made me happy all the time, and happiness, by that in America, we mean pleasure, right? We mean get a latte, have friends, go get a cocktail, go out dancing. That doesn't get you anything in your life. That's just hedonistic and pleasurable. What you need in your life is contentment and satisfaction and that deeper fulfillment and purpose, which comes from your truth, from your authentic self. That's hard work, right? And some of the details about getting that, to your point, are not fun, right? If I just did what I always wanted to because I'm being authentic, that just means I'm trying to have pleasure all day. That is not what it meant. And that's not.
Okay, cool. I'm feeling a distinction here though. So, cause for example, so salsa dancing is something that like really reconnects me and tunes me back into who I am. And in fact, oh my God, get out of here. Are you drinking tangerine LaCroix right now?
Okay. I love tangerine LaCroix. That is my favorite, but hard to find.
Orange.
This one is orange.
Okay. So for people watching, she just lifted up the basically similar looking can that I have on my desk. And you know how I love my synchronicities. So you're orange, I'm tangerine. We're just
there you go.
Discovering.
There you go. But if I had my choice, I'd be drinking tangerine. I mean, just for the record.
But what's funny is I had this debate in the store the other day because I had never tried either one. I'm like, orange, tangerine. What I think's going to be the difference? Oh my God. I digress. But let me come back here because I agree. So I think everything exists on a spectrum, right? And so you mentioned pleasure points, and I think, I think pleasure can be nourishing on one end of the spectrum, and then it could be hedonistic. It could be a way to bypass. It could be a way to just like check out. Even though it's the seeking of pleasure, which creates all these sensations and feelings and whatever, temporary happiness, fleeting emotions, maybe. I think it's still, if not in excess, or if coming from the proper place at the proper time, right? So totally supporting what you were saying earlier. This shit is complex. It can actually be really nourishing. So, because you use the example of like going out dancing, and one of the things for me, especially the last few days, which is funny because I'm in some interesting transits in my life right now, and I just had to put on some reggaeton and just like dance my ass off the other day. And when I'm feeling, sometimes when I'm very, very, very much in my masculine, like you were talking about earlier, like that ambition, that hustle, that push, what I need to do is I need to go salsa dancing because I need to surrender. I need to be in a position where literally and figuratively I'm being led by the masculine and I can just like freaking relax, not have to be in charge. So
I love that. Yeah.
I just said a lot of things. We went on a tangent about the LaCroix water. To bring it back to the actual question, the distinctions, right? So where does it turn into hedonism? Where does it turn into bypass? When does it stop being nourishing and get us away from the pursuit or even the embodiment of actual authenticity as you see it?
Yeah. So I love, first of all, the depth of your questions are so awesome. Here's the thing. They're just totally different entities. And so if you accept that they're different, what you said is the key word in all the philosophy, fleeting. In fact, the Yoga Sutras literally use the word, aversion to pain and driven towards happiness leads to suffering because they're both fleeting. Pleasure, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it even to be hedonistic. As long as you're clear, it's fleeting, it's temporary. No matter how much you try to drag out that salsa moment, you can't salsa dance and feel that moment for, 10 days in a row, you'll drop dead. So you have to stop at some point. The challenge we have is that we want to be in a state that feeling, that salsa dance feeling, right? That moment when you drink that LaCroix and it just tastes so damn good. We want to feel that all day. And our
Right.
culture is saying to us, if I don't feel happy all the time, like that state, something's
Yes.
gone wrong. Oh no, I'm not feeling happy. I need a latte. Oh no, something's wrong. I need to salsa dance. And it's like, no, 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 no. It's like ebbing and flowing. You're going to feel some pain during the day. Your PowerPoint crashing, it happens, right? It's also fleeting. And so letting go of both, they are like waves in the ocean. They come, they go, they come, they go, they come, they go. Let them come, let them go. Just, it's okay if your salsa dance ends. Enjoy it, be grateful for it. And it's okay that your PowerPoint crashed. It'll resolve itself, right? Like,
Yeah.
but when we get into the struggle of pain, pleasure, and trying to hold on to pleasure and trying to push pain away, we suffer.
Yep.
Contentment, fulfillment, purpose, authenticity is just a totally different animal. It's doing what you need to do in your truth, living from your truth. It has nothing to do with pleasure, and it has nothing to do with pain. It's just trying to connect to that deeper self, that really subtle, vague sense that we have, trying to articulate it and then trying to take action. That is an art form, and it's really complicated.
Yeah. Oh, I love this so much because another thing I've been talking about a lot this year, I went through a breakup 10 or so months ago, and it was there was just a lot. This was an opportunity for me. I'd been in relationships. I hadn't been single for more than 6 months in over a decade.
Oh, wow.
Not even on purpose. Like I would just meet someone and be like, oh, you're great. Like, let's do this thing, you know? And so realizing that, hey, I don't have to do that. And I've literally taken myself off the market. I call it being delightfully without consort. And it's been so cool to just be with myself and realize the ways I had been not even unknowingly escaping within my relationships all those years because there was someone to cuddle with, or there was someone to reach for, or someone to talk to. There was like constant, often pleasurable, potentially pleasurable distraction available. So in these 10 months, which is the longest I've just been with myself in over a decade, I've realized the fulfillment and the contentment when it's genuine. It's always there under the surface waiting for you.
Yes.
Riding all the other waves, but it's still there. So the thing that I've been saying is these emotions, these things can coexist. So it's like I could be in grief, I could be upset, I could be angry, I could be enraged. I can still feel content.
Yes, yes, yes. And all the philosophy says this. It's like clouds in the sky is my favorite metaphor for it. But if you take an airplane up, right, like everybody knows the other side of the clouds is blue. We point to the sky and we say, oh, the sky is gray today. Nope, sky's blue. Always blue, remains blue all the time, never. And
still blue.
Still blue. But the clouds are there, and they're like, we confuse the clouds in the sky. And it's the same thing when you confuse your emotions and your thoughts with your deeper self. Your blue sky, always there, always ready. It's just, it's an annoying, I wish we were built in the opposite way, right? Like our thoughts are so loud, they're so intense, they're so like in your face, they're screaming at you all the time to do this or don't forget that, or that little blue sky. It's like this subtle, tiny voice, and it won't compete and it won't yell and it won't, right? What it will do is it'll start you'll start feeling anxious when you go against it too much. You'll start having panic, you'll start having depression, you'll start having an existential crisis. My life doesn't look like my life. What's happening, you know, or I like this relationship. I've got to get out of here. You start panicking about things, but it won't give you the answer unless you just like relax, give space, slow down, surrender, become open. So it's frustrating, right? Like I wish it were the other way around, but yeah, it's always there, always there. And the question that you brought up is, am I getting lost in the clouds? Like, am I just spending my days looking at clouds and saying, that's me? Or do I recognize, hey, when life is moving up and down and back and forth and I'm having all these emotional states, am I also clear that there's also a blue sky all the time, always available, always stable, and, you know, just 100% ready the minute I'm ready to clear those clouds, right? And get to it again.
Yeah. Oh my God. I've never heard that blue sky analogy. I freaking love it so much. People on the show know I love my metaphors. Every once in a while, I really stretch them out, and it's like not good.
My whole book was one long metaphor. Woke up after I wrote Emotional Obesity, and I'm doing all this press, and people are like, so what is emotional weight? Like specifically, and I would say it like I said to you, and then they're like, but how do you lose it? And after a few months, I'm like, wait a minute, it's a metaphor. Like it's not like there's not actual fat on your head. It's just a metaphor. Like, what am I doing? So anyways.
I love that.
I love a metaphor too.
Great. So can you do me a favor and explain, even just like a light definition of existentialism is one of those things that I've probably looked up a dozen times, and I can't retain a working definition of it. I don't know why, although I think somewhere in this system I understand what it is. I don't have the articulation muscle.
Yeah, the existentialists were the first ones to start talking about authenticity in the way that we are. And it's this idea that there is a self, that there is a true self within you. They're competing ideas about what that self is, right? Like, is it a stable, constant state like a blue sky, which is a slightly more Eastern take on it? Is it something that is constantly evolving as you take action? So the Westerners would say, the self, right? Taking that self and bringing it out into the world then defines that self. And it's an endless sort of loop, if you will, right? Does that make sense? So if I tap into myself and then I start saying, I think I want to be a writer, and I start to actually write, then I am a writer now because I'm writing. And so it becomes myself. So my actions become me, and I'm in this loop. So that's what existentialism is really talking about, and that it's driving from your truth, and then it's creating your truth in the Western version. The Eastern would say more that there's, they don't use the word existential, it's Western, but that there is a self, and it's God within you, which is with me, within everybody. It's the universe in motion, and that all of our jobs are to just bring that forward.
Can it be both?
I think so. I love sort of taking the bigger point out of everybody and blending it together into a singular point, which is just that it's all about showing up in your truth and having the faith in yourself, having the ability to push past the fear and the approvals and the seeking of others, and that is really the only way to experience true joy and contentment in the world. And I think they're all saying that. I think religions are saying that, right? And that's where you start getting a sense of compassion and gratitude, and all the good stuff comes out of there.
Yeah. So I know on your podcast you interview, I'm going to put successful in air quotes for anyone listening. Imagine me doing my air quotes over here. Successful people, because successful, define it however you want to define it, right? I would imagine, actually, I looked, so I know successful on your show probably means they have some kind of a platform or some level of recognition in their field of expertise or status or whatever, which are all great things. What do you notice when you have these conversations about I also hate the word real because everything is real, but genuine, we'll use genuine, authenticity, across the board, what comes up? What's in common?
Yes, it's so fun. I've interviewed. So the idea was, how do I find people who are successful and care about purpose and fulfillment and authenticity, right? And I found that there was this huge group of people who were like, thank God, finally somebody's talking about this. And I got, a lot of people willing to come on to talk, because so many successful people are hit up to answer the question, how did you get success? How did you get fame, fortune, status, right? That's what people care about. And for successful people, that's not what they're thinking about, right? Because they've got it and they know that's not it. And so the things that have come out of it is every single person says that's not it, right? You can buy a house, you can get the relationship, you can get the status, you can get the fame, you can get all of those things. They're nice. They're pleasure points. They're comfortable. They're enjoyable, but it's not what brings about a life that's meaningful. And so what does bring a meaningful life? I ask everybody what an authentic life is, and I ask them to tell their story towards authenticity. And it's interesting. It breaks into two categories, mainly the latter. The first one is people who have come from families that were supported from day one to trust in themselves and their truth, didn't have to have a turning point. They just like, here I am, and I was accepted young, and I found my path, and I have parents that were really supportive, and I've been doing it, and I love it. And every day I wake up and feel grateful to get to do what I do. The other ones had a breakpoint moment like I did, where they did things because it seemed like the right thing to do. They got success, but no matter what, there's a nagging, there's a stirring, there's a sense that something's off. And no matter how much success, they're like, no, it's not me. It's I need a second house. I need a second wife. No, it's not it's the job. I have to start a new company. No matter what they've tried, it hasn't gotten rid of that sense until they follow their truth. They have like a breakpoint moment, and it can come from a complete nervous breakdown. Like I've interviewed people who have had complete breaks and ended up in the hospital. Ryan Holiday came on and talked about how he literally went into a hospital because of it. He wrote 5 books, and he's only 29 years old.
What? That guy's only 29 years old? It's ridiculous.
Ridiculous, right? And he's like, the woman I loved was leaving me, all the fame and fortune, and I was having a panic attack, right? Wow. And he had such a bad one, he ended up in the hospital. And then he realized, like, this isn't it, right? And that's where his latest book came from. And so that's the two things that I've really found is it's not about the accolades and fame and fortune, but it is about finding that truth and living from it. And then they all have, I ask them what are their daily routines, and everybody talks about how they create space in some way, right? Like when I read through the storyline, what they're all saying is, I meditate, I do yoga, I surf, I jog, I walk, it doesn't matter, but they do something, journaling, that creates space to check in where they are, how they feel about their life, are they on the right path? It's like a workout at the gym. Every day they're getting real with themselves and getting back on track, right? Like we all go out, we eat too much pie and drink too much wine. You want to wake up the next day and get back on a healthy diet. Or, it starts to have an impact on our bodies. And the same thing with your daily choices in life, right? Like, you can have a really bad day, make a ton of horrible choices in your profession or your relationship. Do you reflect, figure out where your truth is, and come back?
Yeah, I think that reflection. So something else, I create so much space for myself, and I'm not going to say I'm lucky, because I've made these choices to be on my own, live on my own, run my business the way I run my business, so I have space. And like reflection and contemplation, I think, is so, like, people talk a lot about meditating. I actually had a friend send me a message. I use this walkie-talkie app called Voxer. It's my favorite way to communicate with people. It's so fun. And she's like, I've just been like taking some time to think lately. Just actually dedicated time to think. And she said it like it was this revolutionary thing. And I'm like, you mean contemplation?
Right? I know. We don't. It's just go, 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 go. And we're so overstimulated. And then we think, when you open up too many programs on your computer and then it just has that like freak out, like with Max, it's that, how
the wheel of death, the rainbow wheel of death.
The little rainbow. And with PCs, it's like blue death screen. I wish we had that with our brains. Like, I wish we were like at a cafe and we're talking and talking, and then our heads are like, pow, we just like hit the table. We're out cold.
Because we would learn. Maybe we would learn.
We'd know where our limit is. Like if I went to go pick up a 500-pound barbell, it would just be like, nope, not happening. Right. Like I just, there's no way, but I keep moving at a velocity and my mind is fraying and I'm like, I'm fine. I just need 10 more espressos. It's like, no, you're not fine. So, unfortunately we're not designed that way. But I think if you start finding your like little rainbow spinning moment, like where is the moment where you're at capacity, and yes. Do you reboot? Do you stop, close all the programs, take space? Yeah. Contemplate, step back.
This is brilliant. I was literally just within 24 hours having a conversation with a member of my team about a couple mistakes were made. And I'm super like forgiving about all things. But at a certain point, when the same mistake has been made a certain number of times, I'm like, y'all, we just need a system. Like, obviously, if this keeps happening over and over again, there just needs to be a system. So like, let's find the system. This is unacceptable. And the person realized, she was like, oh, got it. Now I notice the pattern. When I am overwhelmed is when I start to mess up. And what I really need to do is stop and ask for help, because help is available, right? And then I was also realizing people who listen to the show know I love all like the typologies, human design, Colby, Myers-Briggs, all the things, astrology, Enneagram, anything that like helps us know ourselves more, right? But again, like the spectrum, let's not put ourselves in boxes and not be available to change. But anyway, so I'm like, oh, and then here's what I do. When we get close to the finish line of something, that's when I take the pedal off the gas. And I'm like, got it. So those are just two examples. So for people listening, there are times like we do have. So like Laura was saying, what's your like rainbow wheel of death moment, or the blue screen, or the like shut it down? What we really need to be able to identify our own red flags. It's like, and the other thing is, long before we're even in the territory, we need to know when it's coming, when we're approaching the territory, hopefully to catch it before we're even on the threshold, and really hopefully before we cross into it and we're just all up in it again.
Totally. And if you pay attention, you're designed to do this perfectly.
Yeah.
So if you spend any time with a 4-year-old, they will tell you right away, hey, do you want to go to a museum for 7 hours? No. I mean, they're just like full body freaking out, screaming no, like throwing themselves on the floor. We came that way. Like we came with the ability to like loud and proud scream and yell no. Everybody in culture, from parents to schools to like jobs, they tell you to knock that off, right? Like stop it, suck it up, manage it. You cannot toss yourself on a floor, right? Like that's unreasonable. Fair. Like I get it. But you're still throwing yourself on the floor, right? Like let's not
You're still
lie.
doing it.
You're still doing
You're
it.
just doing it another
You're
way.
doing it in this like super repressed, crazy way. It's like there's right? It's like we're sucking up that like repressed child who's just throwing themselves. So notice, like if you're freaking out from the inside out, it's like, there it is. Don't implode. Don't say something passive aggressive. Don't like start getting into a fight with a friend. Just be like, okay, I am done. I have to now go sit somewhere and take a time out,
Just
right?
need a
Like
moment. Yeah. I'm laughing so hard because I'm imagining, you know, there's a lot of adult looking humans walking around with like the emotional maturity of children. Cause like you're saying, like we stuff at things we don't express. We don't have healthy ways to express. And I was just imagining, cause literally this morning, like when I realized that PowerPoint thing, I wanted to just literally throw a temper tantrum.
Totally.
And, like scream the F word, punch some stuff. I would have felt better in 3 minutes.
Yes. Yes. But, you know, we're not allowed as adults. Like people think would be weird if like you tape recorded yourself, be like, hey, Laura, just hang on 1 second. I'll be ready for this interview. Or you actually got on, you're like, you know what, screw you. I just need a minute. You just started pounding on stuff because that's what you probably really want to say. It's just not, it's not like, you know, like acceptable, but it's not as if we're beyond that, right? And so here's the thing, like I go to dinner parties and I like to give of myself conversationally. I'm a talker. I'm like chatty. And there's a point where I'm done and I don't pay attention to that point and I keep talking and then I start hating my friends. I just hate them. Like I just start finding reasons that they're not cool people and I don't like them and maybe I shouldn't hang out with them. And it's because I'm done. I'm like, and I'm annoyed and I'm now crabby and irritable. And so I started watching, like, to your point, when does this start for me? I went to dinner parties and I started saying, okay, regroup, because you can't hate your friends. Like you can't like, you know, get a whole new social circle. You got to figure this one out. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm starting to feel this weirdness in my chest and my throat, and my head starts feeling tight and intense, and my eyes get bigger to compensate for the fact that I'm tired. And so there's all of these physical tell signs that I was blowing right through. So now as soon as I feel that, I sit back. I like sit into my chair. I like take a deep breath. I move my eyes away from my friends. I like stand up, go to the bathroom, go get a glass of water, get some space, and ask myself, like, do you need to get out of here? And I'm like, oh yeah, I need to go. And so I stop talking as much. I start to like, take it down a notch. My friends are fine with that. I sort of thought in my head, well, I can't do that. That's rude. I have to, be fully participating or it's a problem, and I had made up all these reasons that I had to behave that way. And it was such an easy solution to just pay attention to my body's wisdom. I just don't have the problem anymore. And I am gracefully like exiting dinner parties. I'm like, and I'm leaving now, and my friendships are intact, right?
Yes. This is so great. I got into an Uber. I got back from Toronto last week. I got into an Uber and I know there's people who love to write like beautiful posts about like always talk to the person on the plane next to you. You never know who you're sitting next to, or always talk to your taxi driver. Like they're people too. And it's like, and I want to like break things right now. I've been traveling for like 12 hours. This isn't going to be a nice conversation. So I still was engaging a little bit because we're like sitting in traffic on the 5 here in San Diego. And we're talking, we get into just like a light conversation about spiritual beliefs. He's like, well, what do you believe? And I just took a deep breath and I was like, I don't feel like answering that question. It's that moment of like, because I felt everything constrict and I was like,
yep,
we're at the point where nothing good's going to happen. So
yeah. And I love what you started with, because you're like, hey, everybody in the world is now saying that you should be nice all the time to every limo, Uber, airplane. Like just your starting point of that belief system being placed into your head. Everybody's not extroverted all the time. Yeah. Like, where did that even come from? Like that somebody said it and we glob onto these things and then we start putting that pressure on ourselves. Yeah. I guess for extreme extroverts, that's fun. But for some people, they need to like decompress sometimes.
Yeah. And how about I be nice to myself by not like overexerting energy that I don't particularly have in the tank right now?
Right. Instead of saying, oh, I feel guilty, I should, because it would be a nice thing to do. And maybe this is a cool Uber driver, like, this responsibility and approvals and a sense of obligation, right? And then you're not even going to be nice to him anyway. So
right. Because that wasn't like, that could be perceived as rude. Me getting to the point of just being like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Like, right. You feel like you're in a cage and you're like, I got to get out of here.
Exactly. And I think that's such a great way of phrasing it. I think that is the sensation, right? When you're past your point, when the little, a rainbow circle is spinning, it feels like you're in a cage. You're just like, I'm going to explode. And people do that year over year over year, and then they wonder what a midlife crisis is, right? Yeah. I've been in my cage, and I've like got the keys within arm's reach. I'm not unlocking my own gilded cage. And then at some point you just like burst out of your relationship. You like leave the city that you live in, you change jobs, and we do these erratic things. And it's like, there's a great book, Wherever You Go, There You Are. Mm-hmm. Particularly the title is great, but that doesn't fix it, right? Because it's like, you've got 20 years of being in this cage, making decisions from that place. So just recognizing that feeling within yourself and honoring it, and not feeling guilty or bad or, what have you.
So we talk a lot on the show about, all these things can go under the umbrella of reclaiming and redefining womanhood in the 21st century. But I love applying that word reclaim or reclamation to all kinds of things. And so you've been doing this work around authenticity for many years now, and it is a buzzword though. And I have this is a pet peeve of mine. Like, there's some great words out there that just because they get used so much, we feel like we can't use them or we shouldn't use them because we don't want people rolling their eyes, I
know. Or you have to add like radical in front of it to make it new again.
Right. That's
radical authenticity. That's what I mean.
Extreme. Yeah. No, but it's radical. Yeah, totally. you're just doing it. I love it. Your podcast, Art of Authenticity, you're not messing around. You don't care? Or how did you get okay with, how have you reclaimed that word?
Yeah, I mean, here's my problem. I'm 46, and this is all because of the internet and social media, the way that words are being used and then how we're perceiving them. It's just a mess, and I feel like it's all over. It's not the word authenticity. It's finding yourself. It's, reclaim happiness. The word happiness, for God's sake, has been so butchered and destroyed. They've taken the original concept of happiness, which meant fulfillment, and they've turned it into pleasure. It's sort of like everything's a mess. So I just have decided, I mean, I could add the word radical in front of it to make it different than just, so my work is not about authenticity. It's about radical authenticity. And so that's why I'm different. But I think that that's not what I'm in it for. I don't want to attract, people who are in the latest trends or, looking to the internet for their solutions in those kinds of ways. I'm an entrepreneur. I feel like this has plagued the entrepreneurial space as well. The solo entrepreneur and just find your dreams and just find your passion. You'll be all set to go. Pay me $10,000 because I've already been successful and I'll show you exactly how to be successful. There's so many things out there that are just terrible, right? And so, I mean, like, I could start a business tomorrow. I have sold a company for a lot of money. I was working a $4 billion business. I could just start saying, I'll just tell you all how to do it. Like, it's a 1, 2, 3 model. That's such a lie. There is no 1, 2, 3 model. Every business is different. So that's you're catching me on a topic that I have become passionately frustrated by. Yeah. And I've just decided to ignore it. There is a group of people who are overly marketing concepts without very much depth to themselves. And it has destroyed a whole bunch of spaces. I don't know what you can do about that other than try to come. So my goal is to come back at the topic, with high quality people and conversations to reclaim the concept and bring it back to its original state.
Yeah, I even reclaim. I'm like, oh man, this word feels like it's getting hot for the bastardization next.
It's brutal. It's like, yeah, I mean, and when we move from thing to thing, it's like if Facebook is out with my nephew who's 16 and Snapchat is in, it's like, I don't know, man. I feel like if you really take this stuff seriously and keep moving with it, it's a very difficult life because it's sort of this endlessly moving target.
Yeah. And, I think part of it too is that anyone with access to a mobile device has a platform, has a voice, and those perceptions. So like, how much more challenging is it now to manage our thoughts, like you were saying earlier, and the ensuing emotions when the inputs are like, I heard a stat, I'm not going to make it up because I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like what we take in on a daily basis is what people like 150 years ago took in their lifetime.
The ability of the brain to take in information is like, a billion parts per second or something, right? Like it's something insane. And what we're conscious of is so tiny. And then we're just being bombarded with information. I mean, I think right now, right, with the complexity of our presidency and the amount of media and press that comes out on a daily basis, people are so overwhelmed, right? Yeah. And that's what I love about the podcast and the conversations I've been having in this topic in the way that I'm interested in it. It is the opposite. It's slowing down. It's surrendering. It's letting go. It's recognizing when you don't have influence or control over something, not to keep pounding into it, to create space, to find your truth, to live from that space. It's sort of the antithesis of the way in which we're functioning right now. And I think people are really struggling right now. I think it's a really hard time with the quantity of content and information coming at you, and to figure out, quote, who you are in that space, right? Because it feels, if you go out there, like everybody's doing everything and how can I fit in? Like it's all being done. I talked to this woman early on in my own platform building. And she said, I went through like 10 websites until I finally realized the only way I'm going to do this is if I just do what I'm totally comfortable with, no matter what. And that's the deal, right? That's that authentic space. And so, I think it's a real challenge for people. I don't know what the solution is, but it's definitely a content heavy time.
I do actually think authenticity is the solution. Like, this is something I say a lot. I'm like, the only thing that any of us have that sets us apart from anyone else is just that we are ourselves.
Yeah.
And at different points in time, like you even, this goes back to what you said earlier to like one of my first questions. It's like right messenger, right time. There are times when people, I've had people in my community for years and years and years. I run live workshops and people are like, I've been following you since like 2011. I'm like, that's amazing. Right. And so they've been with all these different iterations of me and they're like, yeah, like I pop out, I pop back in. And like, I think that's so important for people to realize. Like, I think the FOMO is strong. People are the fear of missing out. They're afraid they're going to miss something. And it's like, you're not, you just can't.
You're not. And, okay. So just truthfully, like I should know better. I built a business at 24, sold it at 35. I came into the internet space. I had a brick and mortar business and I got so swept into it. I'm like, oh my God, I have to like make up. Oh my God, what's my identity and who am I? And like all those voices in my head were like just clamoring instead of recognizing it's just like starting a pizza shop. It's all the same. You got to like get in there. That stuff is a tenth of your issue. Most of it is coming up with an actual product that people care about, doing high quality stuff, doing it in a way that is integral and high value and getting the message clear and getting the solution people are looking for. The rest of it is just window dressing, right? Like it doesn't matter. And it's just like truth be told, I like got stuck up in it for a while. I was like, oh my God, I had to get like photos done and my logo. And it's like, but that's what the new entrepreneurial sort of experience feels like is get the imagery correct and then the people will come. But it's, behind the Kardashians is actually probably a big business, right? It's not just simple Snapchatting.
And, not everyone who listens to this is an entrepreneur. I'm super curious as a mom, how does that, that comes up in even just in motherhood, right? Like who you are as a mom, that you do this, that you identify this way, that this is your method for that. And this is how I feel like this stuff is everywhere. It's not just in entrepreneurship.
No. And yes, I do focus on entrepreneurship because that's what I did, but it is everywhere. As a mom, it's like, I actually had a turning point moment. My son was 3 and everybody was starting to stack up activities on their 3-year-olds. They need to be in Suzuki and they need to go to a soccer and they have to. And I was like, oh my God, my son is behind. He's 3. And I've got to stack up the activities. And I just stopped and I said, Laura, this is like a decision point moment. Are you going to get caught up in this and all the books and all the ways in which you're doing it wrong and how far behind you already are in that whole, mindset, or are you going to stick to your beliefs? And so I stopped, and literally it was a day that I made a decision to not participate, right? And it was hard because these kids are now doing these activities for months and months at a time, years now, and my son's not. He's playing with imaginary play in the backyard, goofing around. And he's living free from being totally scheduled up, right? And I'm like, am I making the wrong choice? Is he going to not get into a good college? Like maybe I'm behind. Like this is just the new style of parenting. So it's so easy to get caught up everywhere. I mean, you have to trust yourself. You have to trust what your beliefs are. You have to recognize that there's nothing perfect. You have to decide what matters to you and live based on that. Because I think of it as like a collective democracy. Like there's these, these voices out in the world that I've listened to, this one and this one and this one and this one. And then I start playing in my own head. They're not even standing here. And I'm like answering to these ideas, right, that are just now in my head.
Yes.
Right? They're not even here. And it's like, oh my God, who's the should? Who are you talking to? Who cares? Who's looking? Do you have a specific person in mind, or are you're just now in a discussion with yourself? So yeah, as a mom, it's really, really hard. I think it's worse than most places, the parenting space. And I don't know if you've checked out Dr. Shafale. For all the parents out there listening, there's a whole movement around conscious parenting and just stepping away from all of this. And that she's brilliant. I love her. She came on our show, like just showing up and recognizing that if you're doing this stuff to your kid, it's you. You're the one with the issues, right? Like if your kid's acting out, it's you. You need to like get your stuff together, right? And I think it is such a challenging time to not get in that competing with the Joneses stuff, that sort of always behind, never enough, never feeling satisfied with yourself.
Totally. And it comes back to like the thing you were talking about earlier, like when you are actually in your truth, in your authenticity, in your power, when you know yourself, you know that how other people do things might not friggin' work for you. So it's like not even, the comparison is moot because it's irrelevant. It makes no sense.
When you live in your truth, the best present that comes with it is that you can start allowing other people to live in their truth and not feel anything other than happiness for them, right? Yeah. That's great for you that you got up at 5 a.m., went jogging, did 60 things, went to bed at midnight. That's not going to work for me, but oh my God, am I impressed with you? I'm not jealous. I'm not competitive. I don't feel bad about myself. Everything isn't like a narcissistic bubble of self-reflection, right? And so it's so fun to accept yourself and accept your limitations and own your strengths and talents, and then give that to other people, right? Like, be yourself, right? Because everyone else is taken is kind of the fun quote that I love. But it's such a powerful experience to truly let go, own your own talents, who you are. It's hard enough, by the way, to figure that out within yourself, to figure out who you are and what you want and how to get that done. Focusing on somebody else, like if you really get serious about yourself and your own life, like that takes up all your time. You don't have time to worry about what they're doing and how that compares. Yeah.
Yeah. And not, I like how you said accepting also your limitations. This was part of that conversation I was having with the person on my team yesterday. I'm like, we each suck at some things. And so we need to fill in the gaps with other people.
Yeah, we suck at most things.
And like, I love that. I love realizing like, oh, damn. Okay, cool. When it's time to cross the finish line, I need someone else to be there to like help me through. Like there's obviously some stuff that I have to do. And so, but I need an extra set of hands or a couple sets of hands on deck or some hearts on deck really to like get me through. Cause that's when I start to shut down. I can honor that so hard so that I don't have to keep creating these situations where I create struggle and suffering for not just me, but others. Cause there I am again, hitting up against the limitation and trying to do something I know damn well I'm not built to do.
Absolutely. And to your point, like recognizing limitations and accepting some of the things, I'm at the point where I'm like, I think I do like 3 things well, right? Like
it's not that many.
It's not very many. It's like, but that's what makes the world go round is that, get really serious about the couple things that you're really talented at, and then let other people be really talented at what they're talented at. And we all can participate and bring our talents together. I create things, I build things, and I problem solve well. That's about it, right? Like I don't really do anything else. And so I need detail-oriented people around me. I need strategists around me. Like I don't do those things at all. And when I don't have those people around, I struggle. I hit limitations and walls, but they do it well. So I have a Rolodex of people who strategize well, and I call them all the time. I'm like, I need my next step. Tell me what I need to be doing.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean you don't trust yourself. That actually means you totally trust yourself to not be good at that thing.
Totally.
And to need some outside counsel. This is amazing. Laura, this was so fun. I'm so glad I didn't email you an hour before and be like, I need to reschedule this again.
This was awesome.
This is episode number 186 for those of you listening. So you can go to untameyourself.com/episode-186. We're going to put Laura's website, links to her podcast in the show notes. You'll be able to find her on the social medias in all the places and all that fun stuff. So Laura, thank you again so much. Anything you want to part on? Anything I didn't ask you that you want to just throw in there on our way out the door?
This was awesome. I really loved it. You're such a great interviewer, and I'm so happy to be on the show. If people want to check out their emotional weight, what gets in their way, I have a free scale on my website, and you can hop on. I took all the ideas from philosophy that I thought were like the key ideas, and it gives you an actual weight, and it's free of charge. So if anybody wants to check it out,
I might go check that out right now. Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Consciousness means that you're aware that judgment is a very limited lens to look through. Like when we're conscious, we're aware that we're conditioned to be judgmental. We're conditioned to look through the lens of good, bad, right, or wrong. And we're also kind of conditioned to buy into the illusion of separation, that I'm me and you're you, and we're not connected, and not connected to anything bigger than me.